All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to For Eye Books. I'm Cameron Whitfield, and this is part of our special interview series celebrating the authors behind Sacramento Noir. Today, I'm joined by Jen Soong, author of Ghost Boy, a haunting and lyrical story set in 1980s Southside Park and Old Sacramento. Uh, Ghost Boy follows Gina Lee as she navigates grief, silence, and unseen forces, emotional and ancestral, that shape her world. Jin is the daughter of Chinese immigrants, an alum of Tin House and Vana, and holds an MFA from UC Davis. Her work has appeared in the Washington Post, The Audacity, and more. Her memoir in progress is A Reckoning of Myth and Migration, and you can find her at jensong.com. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me.
So, e before we get started, to begin, could you share a little bit more about what inspired Ghost Boy and your connection to Sacramento that approached the story?
Sure, I'm happy to. So when I started writing this story, this image of a ghost figure sort of haunting came to me, and I knew I wanted to um, have it set with a Chinese American protagonist, so I could have some of the history of Sacramento and Chinese Americans in it. And I moved to the area in 2018.
Mhm.
So I'm not from the area, but I think that there's so much interesting history here. So it was really a chance for me to dive in a little deeper into a little bit of that research
Mhm.
and try to make a connection to the story,
Mhm.
set in Old Sac, but connected to Chinese American history.
Yeah, Sacramento has such a rich history. And I was talking, you know, talked with, Jose Body and Marine this past week, or in the last couple of weeks, and interviewing Shelley tomorrow. And something I highlighted with them as well is something I really appreciate about this collection is that it really highlights Sacramento's diversity in a way that I've never, you know, seen or celebrated much before. And coming from living here most most of my life, it was like it's really great to see and how it all kind of interweaves. So that's very exciting. Yeah. Um, so let's kind of dive. We'll kind of start with like the kind of bigger picture. So let's start with the more emotional undercurrents of the story. There's so much that simmers beneath the surface, especially in the relationships between the characters. Um, how did you think about writing about silence rather than through dialogue?
Yeah, I love that question. I also just wanted to say that I love the anthology too and how diverse it is. And I've gotten to meet some of the authors that I didn't know. And I really appreciate everyone's background and then what
Hmm.
they brought to the collection and how it illuminates Sacramento in these new ways. Like, take some of the history and what's here today and
Hmm.
then just serves it up in, I think what you said is like sort of very original.
Yeah,
That it's something most people haven't seen, even if they've been
yeah,
in SAC for a long
exactly.
time. So just to talk about silence a bit, I think silence can be a really powerful tool, and what's unspoken can drive a large wedge between characters. For this story, the character is shaped by a mother who left her when she was a young child, and a grandmother she's losing to dementia. So these absences really fuel her in a destructive way. And I'm just really fascinated by these intergenerational relationships and how these
Mm.
dynamics can linger and then impact family patterns and history.
Yeah, and the way you we're able to weave in that silence. Something that I kept as I was reading it, I was reading your story is, you know, because it's set in this like a apartment building. There's a lot of stuff happening in the background, and it's almost like I don't know how you did it, but it's almost like the deafening silence where you can just hear all the like all the things in the background, and it's felt uh very immersive as uh Gina was navigating her journey. It's like,
I'm glad you
uh,
felt that.
yeah.
I think it's like I really wanted to immerse you into this character's head. And
Hmm.
so it's supposed to really feel like you're there and you're not quite sure what's going on either, right?
Yeah.
Like she doesn't quite know what's going on. So
Right.
just
Yeah.
playing with reality and then sort of what's actually happening versus
Hmm.
what she thinks is happening. And
Yeah. It just very spectral. But
yeah,
yeah, I loved
yeah.
it. Uh, so kind of talking, about that, about reality, not knowing what's potentially real. Um, you know, what, kind of the secondary lead character, the ghost boy. Uh, what does the ghost represent to like for you as a presence, a metaphor, something else entirely? Like you know, what does that figure represent for you?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think it even the word ghost brings up different meanings for different people.
Hmm. Hmm.
I didn't grow up believing in ghosts per se. I think I had that kind of cartoon image of like the ghost at Halloween, kind of like the sheet.
Hmm.
Nothing like that was like very spiritual or um, kind of
Hmm.
part of daily life.
Hmm.
So I guess for me, the ghost is more of a haunting. And so I was thinking about the things that we're all haunted by. So
Hmm.
mistakes, regrets, our past actions, people. Sometimes these things can become obsessions.
Yeah, just got the things that are on the back of your mind, like as a weight that just follow you follow you around as much as
Yeah,
you try
yeah,
to
yeah.
escape
Get
them.
rid of it. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, they're things
Yeah.
that follow us, and
Yeah.
whether we want them or not. So I think that it's not quite the literal, translation. It's more of a haunting.
Yeah. And it kind of weaves into the next question, but also thinking about, we'll dive more into that uh about the curse and identity, but something that came to mind as well is, you know, these cycle of one of the cycle of generations, which is, her trying to escape her past, but also potentially run headlong into it, but also what folks can carry when, you know, I said this better in my notes when I was thinking, but there's such an interesting concept of like, the identities, labeling is the word I'm trying to think of when you put like, or telling something they're, oh, gonna be away or not supposed to do that, and then it's like something that becomes part of that person as much as they try not to be, um and how damaging that can be, especially for children. We don't have any kids, but it's just like thinking about like how formative those experiences can be.
Yeah, I think that you kind of alluded to like the curse and also just this
Hmm.
folklore and
Yes.
metaphor in the story. And
Hmm.
so I think that for me, I like to play around with myths and folklore. I think there's,
Hmm.
a lot of cultural traditions where
Hmm.
that's meant to pass along these stories and to
Hmm.
pass along, some wisdom, usually a warning.
Yes.
In this
Yeah.
case, the fortune
Hmm.
teller says to Gina and her mother when she's young that she's trouble, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
this is like the curse. And her mother dismisses it. But I think for a young child, it's a powerful memory,
Mm-hmm.
to have and uh, formative, right? Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that, um, in the hope, I have kids,
Mm-hmm.
the hope is that my kids have the space to grow and develop
Mm-hmm.
and not to be defined as one thing, like a troublemaker or, I think in families that you can have a
Mm-hmm.
label or,
Mm-hmm.
something that's told to you so often.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's positive or negative, I think it's something that, children don't need. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and um, that the weight of that can be, a burden.
Absolutely. Uh, and speaking of kind of those like the mythologies and folklore, is there a particular, you know, it's probably a very tough question, but like any like particular folklores or mythologies that you kind of like gravitate toward, or certain elements um that you like? Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I think
what do
I
you
grew up
gravitate towards?
reading
Yeah.
a lot of, fairy tales.
Hmm.
They tended to be, Western fairy tales,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
Brothers Grimm.
Hmm.
And then I think I had read a lot of Greek mythology.
Hmm.
But more recently, I've tried to like dive into more world mythology and folklore and
Hmm.
Asian myths and just stories that I hadn't heard before. And
Hmm.
I think that in doing so, it gives me permission to come up with my own stories, right? Like whatever you can imagine, whether that's a mythical creature or a ghost or, um, you know, something that's been handed
Hmm.
down. I think that um, whether it's something we come up with in our
Hmm.
imagination or has been passed on for generation to
Hmm.
generation, that there's a way that this becomes, part of the lineage. Like if there's a literary lineage, right?
Hmm.
Like you
Hmm.
you are playing with stories that might be familiar, but then trying to
Hmm.
transform them or have a twist that is not the expected
Hmm.
or prescribed.
Right. Have you heard of the Singing Hills cycle by Nevo?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I'll send you a link for that one after. Like it has uh Easter a lot of Eastern mythology about this kind of I think a cleric who, like in ancient China, who goes around these different towns and collecting stories throughout the kingdom, and just like it's there's like 5 books, like there's like 5 novellas now,
Mm.
and we discovered Nevo in the last couple of years, and it's like if you're interested in mythology and storytelling, like highly recommend those novellas.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Um, so we can back in. Um, we've kind of gone through them. So kind of shifting from kind of the story to kind of process kind of side. Um, was there anything that surprised you as you were writing the story, emotionally, creative? Like, what was like your journey like as this story was evolving, or you know how how it changed? Was it always going to be kind of the same kind of conclusion? Like, what was your process?
Well, this is the first time I was writing a noir story, so I
Hmm.
thought it might be a stretch, but I found it like any sort of challenge. Like it's nice to work with some constraints, but to play with those expectations.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think for one thing during the process for me was that I really liked this protagonist. Like I
Yeah.
found it a lot of fun. She's sort of strong-willed, has ideas of what she should be doing and where she
Hmm.
wants to be. Um, and I just really it's a very short story.
Yeah.
I think it's the shortest in the
It-
anthology.
it-
And so I didn't have a lot of room, but I found it really fascinating to kind of create this world for her
mhm.
and these relationships and her ex-boyfriend and um, you know, uh just trying to add some layers to her
Mhm.
complexity that this
Mhm.
wasn't just a one-dimensional character who's
Mhm.
fallen onto like the rough um
Yeah.
side of things. So I think that for me it was still about like finding this emotional connection with the
Mhm.
characters and how to make that translate to the reader
Mhm.
in such a short amount of space,
Mhm.
so that it
Mhm.
still feels dramatic and still plausible within what you can imagine.
Yeah, and in classic short story, but fashion. I was like, uh, I want to know more about like where this, like where was she before that letter to this place, and what did she do like after? It's like, and like the whole story is like, oh, I would love to have like a spin-off like of a whole thing just exploring more. I don't know if anyone's done that in the noir series yet, of like using that as like a jumping off point. But yeah, I think there's so much there scratching the surface. Um,
I felt
yeah,
that like I felt like this could be just an episode and there could be more.
yeah. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go had to go
Hmm.
back. That's like, but yeah, I had to read it a few times. Um, but yeah, that's yeah, had the so very interesting constraints, especially with the short amount of time. But like you definitely like packed it in there, packed in there with like that emotional core. And like I said, like having the short constraints, but also letting the story like read at the same time with the quietness. I think that was interesting kind of dynamic. So yeah, you did great.
My
Uh,
dog.
oh, all
I
good,
don't know if you
all
can hear
good.
that.
A little bit, but you're fine. Okay, so like that, so a question that I like to ask at the end, kind of like a final reflection kind of question before we go into like outros and final things is, what do you hope this story leaves behind, in the reader, in the world, in Sacramento? When the last line fades, what do you want the reader to carry with them?
I love this question. So, surprisingly, I think that what I hope that readers take away is similar to other stories of mine. I hope that the reader takes away that your story matters, that no matter who you are, where you come from, your story matters, and that, the hope is to give voices to characters that you otherwise wouldn't encounter.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, so thank you for joining me again today for this short conversation. Uh, and for those who are watching this recording and reading the rest of the post, you can find links to Sacramento Noir, her other works, in the rest of blog in the below. So don't forget to, you know, like and subscribe, follow Four Eye Books on Instagram, or read through the other uh, Sacramento Noir posts for a Sacramento Noir summer series, um, as well as other books where we explore, people's voices and looking at different kinds of storytelling, and really kind of bring these personal conversations to the forefront. So until next time, turn the page, take the trip, and see what new perspective awaits.